You did the right thing. So why are you still getting rejected by customers? You speak enthusiastically. Present the product thoroughly. Send detailed quotes. And then, nothing happens. No response. No commitment. No revenue. If this keeps repeating, the issue isn't with the product or the market. The issue is that you're talking to the wrong people in the wrong way. Great salespeople don't persuade every customer they choose the right ones from the start. And it's the sales qualification step that distinguishes an average salesperson from a sought-after sales expert. You don't need to say more. Just ask the right questions, like a real doctor. Want to sell effectively? Start by putting the power of choice in your hands. The key to success in sales is choosing the right people to persuade, not persuading everyone. When you get this right, your sales conversation will be entirely different. Key to success. 1. Establish credibility. Don't start a sales conversation with a question. Start with a statement of position. When you enter a conversation with a customer, if you aren't seen as a person of weight, then no question, no matter how good, will be anything but noise. Establishing credibility isn't about talking about yourself. It's about proving that you see their problem clearly. With a simple 3-part diagram, challenge, cause, data, you not only show understanding, but also get the customer to nod. This person understands the game I'm playing. Don't overuse PowerPoint. Don't make a complicated presentation. Go back to the most original tool, a whiteboard or a sketchpad. This simplicity creates a sense of authenticity. It removes you from the role of salesperson and places you in the role of trusted advisor. Draw 3 industry problems. Explain the underlying causes and back it up with real data. You are leading, not persuading. At this point, the customer no longer sees you as someone trying to sell, but as an expert coming in to help them reflect on themselves. If you skip the step of establishing credibility, what happens? You will get shallow responses. You'll be put on the defensive. What makes your product different? How much does it cost? I'm just browsing. These questions don't come up when you're seen as someone with deep industry knowledge. Without initial credibility, the rest of the conversation is just a chase and persuasion. The result is that you are placed on the same level as cheap competitors, where price is the only deciding factor. Want to act immediately? Prepare a whiteboard pitch. Clearly list 3 urgent industry problems. Identify the root cause of each problem. Include a piece of verifiable data or statistic. When you get on the call or meet, present this before asking any questions. Then stop and ask, of the issues I just shared, which one resonates most with your current situation? This is how you transition from an outsider to someone inside the conversation within the first few minutes. So how can you assert your position from the start so that the conversation not only starts but also goes in the right direction? The answer will unfold as we look at how to dig into the customer's real challenges. Key to success. 2. Dig deep into challenges. When the customer points out the problem they are facing, that is the golden moment. But instead of diving right into presenting the service, a true guide will stop to expand the picture. Don't just listen, explore. Every response from the customer is a door opening to raw data. If properly explored, it becomes the golden material for decision-making. Forget about the product for now, because right now you need to clarify what's really going on behind this situation. It's not about asking a lot of questions. It's about asking the right ones at the right time. A comment about cheap competition isn't just to be acknowledged. It needs to be expanded with careful digging. Who is this happening to? What was the specific situation recently? Who made the decision then? Questions like these don't feel like an interrogation, but they make the customer feel understood. At that moment, you elevate from a conversationalist to a diagnostician. Without tracing everything to the root, all you get are surface-level responses, and surface-level answers are often contradictory, misleading, or have already been handled by old methods. That's why many calls that seem clear are actually unclear. You think you understand the issue, But it turns out you're just hearing what they told 5 other suppliers before. Everything becomes superficial, ineffective. Eventually, you get lost in the crowd, losing all advantage. To avoid this, you need to create a rhythm in the conversation that has depth. Don't rush or hastily shift direction. Take the time to listen to each layer of difficulty. Every time the customer mentions a phenomenon, pull them back to the root. Why is this happening? What's missing here? What has your team not tried yet? Each question like this is a step in peeling away the surface to uncover the core, where the real blockages are hiding. When you go in the right direction, you'll feel the change in the customer's tone, eyes, and breath. They no longer feel defensive. They begin to engage in the discussion with real experience. They recount a situation with details they've never shared with anyone. That's when you know the connection is forming. This is no longer a call for consultation. It's a process where they're ready to open up to someone who listens the right way. Once you've opened that door deep within their mind, don't rush to close it. This is the moment to keep the pace slow, so that all emotions and data can flow naturally. When the customer starts sharing their failures, mistakes, or helplessness during the implementation process, you're touching the real core. There, you don't need advice, just subtle guidance to link the details together. At this point, what you create isn't a survey. It's a vivid report of the reality that needs to be untangled. With the real issues now clarified, the next step is to make clear the true cost they are paying. Because only when the cost is quantified can the conversation truly gain weight and drive decisions. Key to success. 3. Quantify the cost. Don't let the conversation stop at emotions. Emotions open the door, but numbers are what seal the deal. When the customer talks about their difficulties, push them a step further. How is this causing specific losses to your organization? That question is a turning point. From here, you're taking the conversation beyond the abstract and touching on something every leader cares about: tangible losses. When pain is quantified, it will drive the decision. Many people fear asking this question. They worry it will pressure the customer. But in reality, if you've built trust beforehand, this is the perfect time. Because the customer is actually looking for someone to help them piece together all the fragmented parts into a concrete loss picture. Sometimes they haven't even sat down to calculate how much an issue is costing them, in terms of revenue, time, resources, or internal trust. You are the one helping them see that. If you don't touch on the quantifiable factors, the entire evaluation process will be suspended. The customer may feel the problem is present, but they won't feel the urgency to do anything about it. They will procrastinate. They'll back off to think it over. That's not because they don't trust you, but because they don't have enough reason to make a decision. Without a number to compare, every option seems safe. And that procrastination is the most formidable invisible competitor in every exchange. Encourage them to estimate. You don't need an exact number. If you estimate roughly, how much is the loss per quarter? This question forces them to think differently. You'll see them pause, calculate, glance sideways, take a deep breath. That's a signal they're moving out of the realm of perception into the realm of reality. And once they say, about $2 million per quarter, you have a quantifiable benchmark for the rest of the conversation. The value of a number isn't in noting it down. The value is in the process of them saying it out loud. That's emotional ownership. And once they've said it, they will defend that number as an obvious truth. From that moment on, you don't need to force anything. Everything now has a pivot, and that pivot is the loss they've just acknowledged. From that point on, everything you present has a foundation. It's no longer just to know, but to change. Don't stop at revenue. Take the customer a step further with your current profit margin. How much does that loss equate to as a percentage of net profit? When you touch on profit, you bring the conversation to the decision-making control center. Every dollar lost here is no longer an abstract number. It's linked to KPIs, bonuses, reinvestment ability, even position within the company. You're not saying a word more about the product, but the impact you're making is becoming clear. The greatest power of this section is transforming worry into a measurable metric. No more ambiguity, no more waiting. Once you have a specific number, maintaining the status quo becomes unreasonable. You've just shown them that standing still is also a form of loss, and that loss is happening every day. At that moment, the customer no longer sees you as someone presenting information, but as the person who helped them face the truth they'd never dared to look at directly. But numbers alone aren't enough. To truly get results, you must understand the personal motivation behind the customer's actions, things they're not likely to say outright. And that's the key to turning any exchange into a meaningful conversation. Key to success. 4. Unveil personal motivation. An organization is a system, but the decision maker is always a specific person. Every financial loss traces back to someone responsible. If you only address the company's losses, you've only touched the surface. To go deeper, you need to tap into personal impact. The people sitting across from you aren't just company representatives. They are people facing pressure to meet targets, dealing with expectations, and fearing the exhaustion before an unstoppable wave of change. Personal worries are a form of information that customers rarely share publicly, but they strongly influence decision-making. If you don't guide the conversation skillfully, you'll never hear the real truth. If this situation continues, I could lose my position. And if you don't hear that, you won't understand the deep reason why they need to change. You're in a safe zone where the customer agrees but doesn't commit. Only when you hit the right point do they step out of the observation role and enter the conversation. This transition doesn't come from a short question. It's the result of the entire dialogue rhythm beforehand. Once you've built enough trust, depth, and respect, ask a gentle question like, what personal impact do you think this situation is having on you? That question doesn't force, it doesn't stress. It opens up a space for the other person to reflect on their role in the bigger picture of the problem at hand. And often, they'll share more than you expect. At that moment, you must not interrupt. Don't jump in with any comments. Let silence work. Let the emotions naturally unfold to the fullest. When the customer shares, they're not looking for empathy. They're establishing a connection between the risk and their position, and that's incredibly valuable. From here, any proposal you make is no longer a suggestion, but a response to a real, specific, and deeply personalized pressure. If you don't touch on this area, the customer will easily back off when something small changes. A bit of budget being held back, an intervention from a superior, a hesitation from a colleague. That's enough to make the exchange fall apart. Because the commitment route hasn't been built. Without an internal reason strong enough, any offer becomes easily replaceable. At that point, you don't lose because the method wasn't good enough, but because you haven't created a personal reason for the other person to keep going with you. Only when they speak their true fears do you see the essence of the exchange. This is no longer about handling a project. It's a personal effort to protect their image, position, career progression, or even livelihood. These things aren't in contracts. They don't appear in slides, but they're the strongest catalysts for decision-making. The better you understand this, the more capable you'll be to walk alongside them long-term and deeply, beyond the role of a typical salesperson. What needs to be remembered is real people, real issues, real emotions. Don't rely on assumptions. Don't rush to judge. Let the process of interaction lead you to these sensitive areas. When you're standing in front of a customer caught between expectations from higher-ups and the constraints of the system, don't see them as a file. See them as a person who's struggling, and you as the one who helps them acknowledge that by not judging, not imposing, but listening until the very end. Once you've reached their real motivation, it's time to move on to the final step, presenting what the customer really cares about. How you present it shouldn't just be about features. but should reflect a deep understanding of their needs and the most important things to them. Key to success. 5. Present the right touchpoint. Finally, after all the peeling away, understanding, and quantification, you step into the stage that many are eagerly awaiting, but also the most prone to mistakes. That's when you present your solution. And a common mistake is presenting everything. All features, all utilities, everything that can be done. But the customer doesn't care about everything. They only care about what can solve the problem they just admitted. Everything else is noise, and noise distracts attention. Don't overload. Don't try to impress with versatility. Don't present to persuade. Present to connect. Everything you bring up now must align closely with the issues already confirmed. If they've talked about being undercut by price, talk only about how to maintain value. If they've talked about selling to the wrong people, go straight into the high-level approach. Focus now is showing understanding, and understanding builds trust. When you speak only about what they are truly concerned with, they will nod, not because you spoke well, but because you are speaking the truth. Every detail you present should be like a key fitting perfectly into their mental lock. They've told you about a worry, a risk, a loss. Now you're responding directly to that. No rambling, no showing off. That feeling creates natural consensus. All defensive reactions disappear, and the decision-making process starts gliding smoothly along. Many people think that this stage requires detailing every feature, but in reality, the details don't matter as much as the connection. An excellent presentation isn't about the thickness of the slides, but the alignment with the burning issue at hand. The customer doesn't need more information. They need confirmation. What I'm struggling with is understood, and there's a specific approach for it. And if you keep your content centered around that, you'll create an impression that no competitor can replicate. To do this, before stepping into the presentation, review everything the customer has shared. Highlight each statement showing frustration, failure, or pressure. Put them on the table and ask yourself, does what I'm about to present directly address this? If not, leave it out. If so, clarify and make it concise. Anything unrelated, no matter how great, should be left behind. Selectivity is the highest form of respect. If after all this, some still enter exchanges just to persuade, it's clear they aren't ready to make a true impact. The market doesn't need more pitches. It's thirsty for individuals who know how to dissect the bottleneck and force the listener to face the stagnation that's eroding the organization. Who's decisive enough to make the other person stop, sigh, and say, "We can't continue like this anymore." This isn't the time to talk more. This is the time to upgrade the way we frame issues, lead conversations, and close each exchange as if the result depends on it. Stand up, rewrite your approach script, and enter the next conversation as a true expert, not someone begging for time. Thank you for watching the whole video. Please like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos.